This is end of month 1, and we're not just reviewing, we're building something you can actually use. Over the last 3 weeks, you've learned Azure fundamentals, created functions, and connected BC to Azure in both directions. Today, we put it all together. One complete integration, real business scenario, real APIs. Here's what we're building: VAT and CVR number validation. When a salesperson enters a VAT number on a customer, we validate against the EU VIES service. For Danish CVR numbers, we go further. We look up the company in the CVR register and can autofill the customer's name and address. No more typos in VAT numbers. No more manual lookups. No more rejected invoices because the VAT number was wrong. By the end of this video, you'll have a working integration using real government APIs. Let's finish month 1 strong. Let me explain what we're building and why it matters. The problem: B2B companies need valid VAT numbers for invoicing. A wrong VAT number means rejected invoices, compliance issues, and manual cleanup. Salespeople type VAT numbers manually, and they make mistakes. For Danish companies, there's another pain. When creating a new customer, someone has to look up the company in the CVR register, then manually type the name and address. Tedious and error-prone. The solution: automatic validation and enrichment when entering customer data. Here's what we're building. Salesperson enter a VAT number on a customer card. BC calls our Azure function with the VAT number. The function detects the country from the VAT prefix. For EU VAT numbers, validate against the VIES service. For Danish CVR numbers, look up in the CVR register, get company details, return validation results plus company data. BC shows the result and offers to autofill customer fields. 2 real free APIs. EU VIES, the official EU VAT validation service. Free, returns whatever a VAT number is valid, plus the registered company name and address. Danish CVR API, a free API for Danish business register. Returns company name, address, industry code, status, and more. This is a common pattern in the Nordics and EU. And the beauty is, these are real government APIs, no mock data. This actually works. Let's build it. Before we write code, let's design the contract. What does BC send? What comes back? This is what BC is going to be sending: VAT number, and if you want to include company details. Very simple, very small payload. This is what our Azure function is going to respond with. If it's valid, the VAT number, country code, and so on with information. So you're getting a lot of enrichment of a very small call. For non-Danish EU VAT numbers, we get less data. VIES only returns name and address, but validation is the key thing. For invalid numbers, we return is valid false, with a message explaining why. Let's build the function. So these are the APIs. Now I'm using the test API for the VS. Of course, if you want to use this really, you should create an account at them and then use the real one. But this is what you have to call, where you have the VAT number here. And it will return something like this. And the Danish one for the CVR register, you use this endpoint with the VAT number here and what country code. So let's build our Azure function. So let's start here with our AI, right? We need a new Azure function that is HTTP triggered. It needs to be able to receive the following payload. Let's just take this payload. it should then use this payload to figure out if the VAT number is from DK. If so, it should call this. It should call, let's just keep it to not too many tokens. It should call this endpoint, right? Where we're going to say that this is our VAT number, which, if success, should return something like this. And let's just get the response. It's way too much, we don't need all that. Just keep it simple and take 2 of them here. Let's see how it ends. So with this, and let's see if it's invalid, what it's going to return. So let's just write something gibberish here, something like that. It's going to return like this. So, and if not found, it will return something like that. And then let's say if the VAT number from the payload is not DK, then call this one. Where DE, that part is the VAT number. On success, it will return now this is XML, but the AI should be able to figure out. We'll return this XML. On failure, it will return. Let's see what it actually returns if we fail on this. Let's just create like that. It will return this. The Azure function should respond with the following. The company details should only have values if the payload has this, right? This is true. And take the information from the first object in the array from production units if a DK VAT number. If not DK, then company details should always be empty. Okay, so this is a large prompt, so let's see what actually happens when I fire it. So it has created this. It has some warnings here. I don't care. Let's try to run it and see if it actually works. So it's actually giving me an error here. And let's just check this. Throw it over here and see if I can fix it. Okay, so now it has fixed some things and it says it's done. So let's try to see if we can build it. It actually said something about the timeout of the 60 seconds, but it looks like they're here. So let's see if we can call them. Again, I normally do this in Visual Studio. So Visual Studio Code is actually kind of new for me, doing Azure functions there. So let's do a post against that endpoint with a body. And let's take this body. Let's see what happens. It says nothing there. So what does it say over here? Nothing. So is it running? Let's try to run it again. Okay. Of course, now I can see it's running, right? Because now I have the debug bar. I did not have that before, so it makes sense. Let's try to call it again. So this is not valid, which we did not, of course, we expected that not to be valid. So let's try to take the CVR number over here, which is for Lego in Denmark. And let's try to use that instead. See if that works. That doesn't work either. So apparently this part does not work. So let's get AI to fix that. But before we do that, let's try to see if the EU one works. So the German one here, oh no, that's not the right one. Let's go back to a valid one, this one. Let's see if the German one works. It does not work either. It says no access, query authorization required. So let's see if the debugger has any information for us. So this one should be calling that endpoint for the get. And it gives us, please provide a user agent that says something about your company or project. Okay. So let's give that to the AI. See if we can fix it. It's probably because I'm not registered as a user. So now here is added a user agent there. Let's see if that fixes our problem with our DK. Let's disconnect that one and let's try to run it again. And it should be running. So let's try to go back to our DK one here, but should be Lego. See if that works. Error validating JSON could not be converted to. So again, that's a problem in my Azure function. So let's just take this very large output, throw it in here because it's probably something about it's passing its JSON. Of course, I could have prepared all of this in the beginning, right, and just showed you the final product. But I like to show the way that I'm working so you can see that we all make errors and how I try to fix them going forward. And trying to embrace the AI chaos here, right? Letting AI try to fix all the problems for me. Okay, and it says it's done, so let's try to run this again. And the good thing is, of course, as you can see, we actually got a response from the CVR, so we are calling the CVR register API right now. The only thing we need is to pass the JSON that we're getting back. And hopefully the AI fixed that problem now, so we're actually passing it correctly. So this should be up and running again. So let's try to call this one again. And we're getting a response saying Lego, and it's valid. Perfect. Then what if I try to an invalid one for Denmark? It says false. Perfect. So now that works. Now the interesting thing is about this one, VIES, if I can get this one to work. So let's call this German one. This says it's invalid, so let's see what the output is actually telling us. The result, it's saying that we need to authorize. Which is, if we look at here, I'm using the test one. The question, didn't I pass those as part of? Is that the problem that I should be using this maybe? Let's try to call this one directly in Postman and see what happens. What do we get? So that one works. The question is that the URL that I gave the AI is not correct. I actually did username and password as part of it. So let's just disconnect this. Let's see if we can find where we are actually calling the endpoint, which is here. So this part I need to change. So it goes to API test. Yes, let's see if that doesn't fix our problem. And it should be running again. Let's go back to our Azure function here, trying to call this German one. Still says no access. And we look in our output. Right, this one is still not calling the correct here. So there's somewhere else we have this URL. Let's just see if I can fix it. Make sure when calling VIES use as the API endpoint. So it says there's nowhere else where it's actually doing that. But then let's just say I am getting this output, but when calling it from Postman, it works. And then let's go into Postman and go to our call here. And let's look at the code. Maybe we should take something a little more. Let's take the C# HTTP client like that. See if the AI figures something out about it. Okay, so it says it's just fixed something. Let's see if that's true. And let's call this one again. And now it works. This says the number is valid. Perfect. And if we try to do something strange with this number, it should say invalid, right? Yeah. So now that works. So the Azure function now works. Now it might seem like this was, I don't know. I feel like this was a lot of work, but of course, if you think about it, if you have a whole integration up and running now in a couple of minutes, which is still very much faster if you had to do it manually. And also, if you don't understand to write C# code, you will never be able to write this. Anyway, now we have this Azure function. Let's try to deploy it to our Azure, right? So we go over here to Azure. I go to my subscription. I go to my function app. And I have this one I want to deploy to. And yes, I want to deploy that. And it's deployed. So let's go to our Azure and see if it's there. And you can see we have a validate one now here. Let's go in on that one. Let's get the function URL. Let's get the default. And instead of calling our local one here, let's try to call our Azure. See if the result is going to be the same. It is. Perfect. So now it's hosted in Azure. So now we just need to connect our Business Central to this function, right? So we got the function URL. So let's go back here. Let's go here to our Business Central. And let's say add 2 actions to our customer card. One called validate VAT with details, and another called validate customer without details. They should both call this endpoint with the following payload. And let's just check our payload. And let's see if it actually figures out. if that details should be true or not, and the VAT number if it figures out that could be our CVR number. And message the response. Let's see what happens. Okay, it says it's done. So let's create this one. Yeah, true, false. Validate customer. Messaging our response. Let's create one function, right? Which is taking our customer and is taking a boolean. So it's using the function. Put it inside our email validation management. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't really have much to do with that, but let's just say that's fine. This is not about coding AL correctly. This is more about connecting systems. So true, false. Images are not correct, right? One is text that does not exist, and one is text detail. Let's just choose another image here. Let's say web. Doesn't matter. See if it compiles. It does. And let's try to deploy it. Let's go to this customer. So here I have a DK CVR number. Let's see if you can find our action. We have it here. So let's validate with details. And it validates. It says this is legal systems. That's correct. If we try to validate without details, it still says it's valid. So that's also correct. So let's try to make it to the German one. My debugger is not happy with me. And that's probably because I'm not allowed to use the German on one that is not in Germany. So let's just refresh that one. Let's check one of the other customers. And let's put that one in. Germany, like that. See if I'm allowed to do it now. It says it's fine. Action. So validate without details. It says it's valid. And if I try to validate this with details, it also says it's valid, which is fine, and it doesn't have any details, but that didn't have that anyway. Now, of course, the idea here is, of course, to take a JSON payload and then merge it inside the customer and stuff like that. But I'm not going to do that. I'll leave that to you if you want to do it. This was just about connecting the systems. And now we've done that. We have created an Azure function from scratch using AI to write it all to connect to these two APIs. Then we used again AI to write a simple way to call these two validations from Business Central. Before we call month 1 complete, let's talk about production reality. Scenario 1, VIES is down. The EU VIES service has maintenance windows and occasionally outages. It's government infrastructure, not always 99% uptime. Our code handles this. If the call fails, we'll tell the user to try again, if it don't block the customer creation. Rate limiting. Both APIs have rate limits. CVR API allows reasonable usage for business purposes. VIES doesn't publish limits but will block extensive requests. For normal business use, you won't hit these. But don't try to validate your entire customer database in a loop. Data privacy. CVR data is public in Denmark. Anyone can look it up, but be aware of GDPR. When storing and displaying this data, the company gave it to the government, not necessarily to you. Design decisions for this integration. We fail open. If validation fails for technical reasons, we don't block the user. They can create the customer and validate later. For some businesses, you might want to fail closed, required valid VAT before allowing the customer. That's a business decision, not a technical one. For production, consider caching validation results. If someone validates the same VAT number multiple times in an hour, you don't need to call the API each time. Add a simple cache table in BC, VAT number, validation results, timestamps, check cache first, call API if not found or expired. Let's step back and see what we have accomplished in month 1. Week 1 to 2, you set up Azure, understood the hierarchy, created your resource group, set up cost alerts, foundation in place. Week 2, you built your first Azure function, understood serverless, deployed from VS Code. You can run code in the cloud. Week 3, you connected BC and Azure, both directions, OAuth authentication, API calls, systems talking to each other. Week 4, you build a complete integration, real government APIs, production patterns, actually useful. You can build real solutions. This is not trivial. Most BC developers never get here. They stay in AL, stay in BC, stay in the comfort zone. You are different now. You understand the integration layer. You can design solutions that span systems. And you build something you can easily actually use. That VAT validator, put it in your next customer project. It adds real value. That's month 1. That's the foundation for everything in month 2 and 3. Month 2 takes this further. Azure Service Bus. What happens when you need reliability? The messages can't be lost when systems need to be decoupled. Logic gaps. What about integration that doesn't need custom code? Connecting systems visually. API management. What happens when external patterns need to call your APIs? Do you secure it? Monitor it? Control it? Month 1 was about the basics. BC calls function, function response. Month 2 is about architecture. How do you design systems that are reliable, scalable, and secure? We start next week with Service Bus, and it's going to change how you think about integrations. See you then.